Shwmae a chroeso I Sgwrs, podlediad Consortiwm Canolbarth y De. Yn y podlediad hwn byddwch chi'n clywed y trafodaethau diweddara am bob math o bethau addysg. Hello and welcome to Sgwrs, the Central South Consortium podcast. In this podcast we'll bring you the very latest discussions on all things education.
Croeso bawb, bienvenue and bienvenidos, and thank you for joining us today to discuss the successful integration of international languages into the primary curriculum. My name is Marina Saez, and my background is in primary education with a specialism in international languages, particularly Spanish, and I currently have the honor to work with primary schools, helping them, supporting them, introducing international languages into the curriculum. As you know, the introduction of Curriculum for Wales in the autumn of 2022 brought international languages into the LLC curriculum alongside English and Cymraeg. It was quite a challenge for schools to start a subject that was not traditionally there, and the start of a kind of multilingual journey into teaching literacy. And we know that primary schools in Wales are all at different stages in terms of their readiness to teach international languages. If we take, for example, the report from British Council, the Language Trends Wales, it showed that 72% of primary schools were already teaching an international language within curriculum time, but they recognize at least 40% of those that they were at very, very early stages planning for provision. And that is quite normal if we consider that schools that had never taught a language have to consider, but first of all, what language to teach or to teach multiple languages, from which year groups, how often will those languages be taught, and how long will the lessons be. Then they have to plan, sometimes even from scratch, and select which knowledge, skills, and experiences they're going to offer their students. Will those languages be taught in standalone lessons, or will they be connected to other relevant areas of learning? And also, how do these schools create a relevant and interesting model, ensuring progression in language learning and also ensuring the sustainability of their program? Then also schools have to decide who will teach the subject and whether practitioners maybe need upskilling in that particular language they are teaching or related pedagogy. All right, so in order to share their journey, I say their successful and wonderful journey towards introducing French and Spanish, today we are talking to Sue Watson from Gladstone Primary and Rebecca Irwin from Stacey Primary. Hello, bonjour, and buenos dias. Can you start by introducing yourself and your role in school, please?
Okay, hola. I'm Becky Irwin. I currently work at Stacey Primary School teaching Year 1. I'm Progression Step 2 lead and the International Language lead here.
Gracias. And you, Sue?
Hi, salut, I'm Sue. I am in Gladstone Primary in Cardiff. I'm the TLR for literacy. I'm the Year 6 teacher. So I lead the international languages under my TLR role.
Fantastic, merci. Can you tell us a little bit about your own language, about your own experience as a language learner, Sue?
Yeah, studied languages in school, studied up to A level a long time ago. But my passion was with languages in school. And when I first started teaching, I went to Kent 30 years ago, and to my surprise, I suppose, they were teaching French in the primary curriculum then. So from the word go, I've been exploring how to teach international languages within the primary setting. It's not that I'm a fluent French speaker or a fluent German speaker, but it was just something I was always really passionate about, and something that was said to me very early on my return to Wales. Was about some of the most successful language leads are those who aren't fluent, because they understand the sort of the difficulties learners have, and that for me was the best thing anyone could have said to me. because it's allowed me to develop the role as I have.
Absolutely, I completely agree. This definitely resonates with me as a teacher of international languages who then had to start teaching Cymraeg as well. What about you, Becky?
I feel that I've had a kind of mixed experience with languages, because when I was in high school, I did choose to take French GCSE and Welsh GCSE, but unfortunately, I think the attitudes of my teachers at the time gave me a negative attitude towards my language learning, purely because my Welsh teacher was ahead of year, and we were quite often, don't worry about this class, it's languages, I've got to go and deal with something. And we didn't necessarily have those rich language opportunities and experiences. But then as an adult, when I took on the role of IL lead in my school, I couldn't speak another language fluently, or I wasn't confident. But I've been on courses now where I've been out to Spain, and I've done a beginner's language course in Spain. I've attended lots of the CSC courses, and I absolutely love learning language. I feel like I've had a much more positive experience as an adult. But I feel now, as my role of IL lead in my school, I don't want anyone to have the experience that I've had, that language is an add-on, or it's something that's not as important as some of what subjects are valued as. I feel that I really want to promote that learning a language is extremely important and extremely beneficial.
Absolutely. And it's just so interesting to hear you share that, because I always had the feeling that teachers have more impact than they think they have in their attitudes towards subjects. And that kind of reflects on the status of that subject in the school and the profile. And definitely, if you value languages, that your students will value them as well. Plus, you said the word love, and Sue said the word passion. And I think love and passion trump anything else, even the skills to pronounce things perfectly well and to say the perfect sentence. Love and passion is where it's at. Becky, do you know, or do you think you can share with us why you were chosen to be the IL coordinator?
I think there's two reasons for it. My head teacher does often say I'm like an excited puppy. She gives me something to do and I run away with it. I do really enjoy a project, but something that myself and my head teacher have in common is that both of us trained as teachers in England. And in England, they've taught modern foreign languages for a very long time. So Emma, my head teacher, felt that I had an understanding of teaching international languages in a school, and that I had, although it was just some limited experience during PGCE, that I could be the person that could lead languages within the school.
Absolutely, I would agree. I think that has really paid off for the school, seeing how successful you've been. What about you, Sue?
Well, a bit like Becky just said, I suppose because I taught in England for so long, and initially when I went there, it wasn't as part of the curriculum, but as an authority, Kent were teaching French, and then it became very much a national curriculum subject. So, you know, I've been doing these sorts of primary lessons for such a long time. I taught year 2 for many years. We do maths lessons in French, we do PE lessons in French, we do art lessons in French. Very simple French, but it was just dropped into everyday sort of language, because it was really supposed to be from Key Stage 2 up, but even with the younger children we were doing it. So I suppose it's that background that I came with.
In Gladstone you teach French. Can you tell us a little bit about how that language was chosen specifically, and how you decided to embed it? There was any specific criteria or motivation for that?
We as an SLT, obviously we discussed how were we going to do it, because there were many different models about taking one language or doing different languages in different classes. But we felt, as I suppose we've all sort of already sort of spoken about, is that the introduction of international languages was something new. For many people, something quite worrying because of, as Becky just said, previous experiences with language learning. So we decided to go the route which was the common language that we had experience of in the school, because we felt that would help us to start the journey. And just by asking and talking with teachers, it came out that French was had been far more commonly learned than any other language. So that, to be honest, was why we chose French, because we felt if it had some starting language, it would give them the confidence to give it a go, which it's proven that it has worked.
Yes, absolutely. And all the connections of Wales with France, and you have the Celtic connections with Brittany. So lots there to explore as well culturally, I guess. What about Spanish, and how Spanish was chosen as the language for Stacey Primary?
So we were really lucky, actually. We were able, as a staff, we were given the opportunity to go to a few different countries first to do some beginner courses before we made the decision. So not just myself, I did go to Spain on a beginner's course, but another member of staff went to Italy. Another member of staff went to France, and we had a little discussion about what we were going to do, but we settled on Spanish because it is the second most spoken language in the world. So we wanted to equip children with a language that we felt that they could use, and that they might experience quite a lot when out in the world.
And Becky, at Stacey, can you tell us a little bit about what support you receive to establish your Spanish program?
Yeah, so once we had decided that we were going to take on Spanish and learn Spanish as teachers and as pupils, there was opportunities to go on trips to Spain with Global Futures. A few of us across the staff have been on these trips where we went on beginners courses and immersive experiences where we learned the language in Spain. We've also trained all of our teachers and the majority of our TAs on the CSC courses that you provide, Marina. They've been absolutely fantastic in learning languages and building confidence in others. And from a leadership point of view, I did attend quite a few of the CSC IL leadership courses a few years ago, and I feel that they were really beneficial in supporting me to become the leader of international languages within the school.
What about you, Sue? Can you tell us a little bit about the support you've received?
Yeah, no, school very supportive. I did a beginner's French. It was during lockdown when I did my beginner's French. So went through the process of the course, which is currently running at the moment. And I suppose what struck me was the language structures being very simple, but very quickly I realised it was the processes we were being taught and how to teach French. And it sort of changed the way I'd ever taught French before, I suppose. So I did the beginner's course, I did the intermediate course. I make sure I keep up with all the webinars, the network meetings. I came on the developing the curriculum training, which again took away and have used in school. So yeah, school very supportive, but it's just about keeping up to date with current initiatives, things that are going on, you know, language awards, and just reading around wherever I can, really.
Yes, I think it's constantly in development. I say anything that we do is always work in progress, but recognizing that is very important in itself. And yeah, I think that many schools have said that attending the CSC language courses has been key for them to kind of start the language teaching. And many teachers have got the bug now, the language bug, and they keep coming back for more. So we run lots of webinars on specific topics they want help with, like phonics or joining in with stories, or using drama, using music, which is, you know, everybody loves a good song, everybody loves a good game. So using those strategies that you use in your lessons in the language classes is always going to be effective.
The beauty of those training sessions, Marina, is that you can take them back into school. You know, if you've attended it yourself, it's very, because everything is provided for you, as we've done, you then take the training back in and you can develop, you can use it within the school setting, you know.
Let's talk about planning for a minute, because I know teachers that haven't started might want to know a little bit more about anything from how often, how long, who teaches them, where is the planning, what is your pedagogical strategies, anything that you want to share with us in terms of the language instruction and the planning, the curriculum. I don't know, Sue, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So I came on the curriculum design training, and we were introduced to the language continuums. So very in line with the Welsh continuum that's currently available, but the sort of early stages were shared with us, and it just made sense for planning progression of language skills across the school. So what I have done is created a whole school progression document, so we don't feel we just teach a particular topic in one class. We're ensuring that we're layering the language skills whilst getting the coverage that we need. But also, because we've linked it to the continuum, what teachers are finding is if they know they're doing families, the continuum allows you to link on a tab that says families, and it takes you straight to a page where all the resources you need are there, the sentence builders, because we very much are following the TPR form of teaching, so the total physical response form of teaching, which it makes the idea of chunking the language or putting the language into chunks, that the children learn the chunks of language and then they can add to their chunks of language. It just makes it accessible for the learners. It makes it easy for us to plan. We create our sentence builders. We've got activities and games that we're comfortable with, and this is a lot of it, the teacher being comfortable to deliver it. We have regular meetings, international language meetings within sort of particularly the upper end of the school, where the language learning is slightly more formal than the younger children, but we discuss, and the frequency has been a big question. How long should we be teaching for? And we've come to an agreement that we do a formal sort of lesson once a fortnight, and I know many schools are doing French Friday, so we've agreed a formal session once a fortnight, but our sentence builders go up, and a bit like Help Ahead You, that we're dipping in to the international language on a regular basis to ensure we don't leave too big a gap between accessing it, because obviously they'll forget. So and it's not written down formally, but our year 5 teacher, she sort of does, she finishes a day with Welsh one day and French the next, Welsh one day, French, so she's rotating it like that. I suppose what I perhaps should say, we're in it's quite a unique position that from year 3 to year 6, our teachers have apart from me, I'm in year 6, so 3, 4 and 5 have completely changed. So we've sort of had to start all over again, because we've had young new to teaching people coming in, and it's been really interesting to see how they've taken it on board and how they like the sentence builders, how they're using the sentence builders.
Yes, I think that many schools that have received training in extensive processing instruction by Dr. Conti, the famous EPI, have found sentence builders to be like a magical tool that gives children instant access to language building. And this dividing the language in chunks and teaching in chunks rather than individual words that have no connection, so that everything, the language is connected together very well. That has been great success, very successful. Right, thank you for that. Becky, would you like to tell us a little bit about your program, how it works?
Yes. So we're quite a few years into teaching international languages now. We did start just before COVID, so it has evolved over the years. We started off with a Help Ahead You style approach, where each class was doing a few minutes every day, and we were learning basics, how to say our name, to greet, to say goodbye. But then when everybody had mastered that and was quite secure in that, where did we go from there? We needed to show progression across the school, so we did create our own scheme of work. But what we did with that was we mapped out what we were going to be teaching in Spanish, and we linked it to what we were currently teaching in Welsh. So, for example, if autumn term 1, we were teaching the weather in Welsh, we would do the same in Spanish. And the reason that we did that is because we wanted children to be language detectives. We wanted them to make connections between the languages, and we also wanted them decoding one language using their knowledge of another. We try to have high expectations of the children. We use vocabulary like cognates. We talk about using cognates and finding the roots of the language. And through doing that, we developed something in Stacey called Tri-Talk. And first of all, we were alternating weekly, where we would have a Spanish oracy session on week 1, where we would equip the children with the Spanish vocabulary that they would need, because they had been learning Welsh already, and for a few years they had some knowledge of Welsh. Week 2 then would be our Tri-Talk week. So during that week, we would use English, Spanish and Welsh within one session, so that the children were making those connections. And it may sound quite confusing to those who haven't seen a session, but we don't do it in a way to catch children out. If you are asked a question in Welsh, you answer in Welsh. If you are asked in Spanish, you answer in Spanish. And we did find that we needed visual prompts for this. Children were getting languages mixed up. They were saying to me things like estoy wedi blino. So what we do in our school is just using those lovely corrugated borders that you use for your display boards. We've made hats where if we're speaking Welsh, we wear our Welsh hat. If we're speaking Spanish, we wear our Spanish hat. But I know in other schools they do things like football shirts, caps, scarves, or other prompts. So from that was working really well for us. But after attending the Dr. Conti Mars Ears course with CSC, I realised that we're teaching topics in school, language topics, but we didn't have an end goal. We were teaching it because that was what was on the sequence of lessons, that was on our scheme of work. Whereas now we've developed that each half term we're doing a 5 to 6 week sequence of lessons where we're teaching still in the topics linked to the Welsh, but we need an end goal. For example, if we are teaching the vocabulary for the weather, why? What are we going to do at the end of it? So there is that expectation that after so many weeks, children need to produce something. For example, a sentence lower down the school. It could be a very short weather report in the style of a weather reporter, or for example, in year 6, when they're doing hobbies and leisure, they're expected to make a phone call to the leisure centre and book an exercise class, because by the time they're in year 6, they've covered days of the week, they've covered leisure activities, telling the time, and they should have those basic communication skills where they're able to make the phone call. So that's working well for us. We've also integrated story. So once per year, a year group will do a half term where they're learning a story in Spanish, and the feedback on that has been fantastic. When I was out in Spain, I actually went into the airport equivalent of WH Smith and bought stories such as the rainbow fish, the ugly duckling, and all. Although you may think it wouldn't work with year 6, they absolutely love it because they're familiar with the story and they know it in English. It's really good to help them learn the Spanish. So that's worked really well for us. And we've also got an expectation where we do inquiry-based learning in our school that once per half term or inquiry, that each class does a CLIL session. So that's content language integrated learning. So it may be off topic. It could be about recycling, it could be about the layers of the ocean, it could be about music. It's whatever the current inquiry is in the classroom. We will do some kind of language learning and integrate that with the skills that they're learning.
TriTalk is probably, to me, the best example I've seen of translanguaging and kind of moving fluently and kind of smoothly between one language and the other, which is in the spirit of the new curriculum for Wales. And Becky, would you have any examples of activities or games that are very successful in engaging your learners, maybe?
Yeah, so I think at the moment, something that we are focusing on is input flooding. So especially with our younger learners, we teach Spanish, Welsh and Mandarin nursery to year 6. We do have a Mandarin tutor that comes in once a week to teach our Mandarin, but the way our school is set up is that all teachers do their own language learning when it comes to Welsh and Spanish. So with the input flooding, that's something I learned on the Dr. Conti course, and it's just making sure that there are just unlimited opportunities for children to listen and to repeat the language. Something that is really popular in my year 1 class is Fireball. So I would take an object, say a word, I'd throw it to a pupil, they'd repeat it as quickly as they could, and they would throw it back to me. Something else that I've actually been doing with my class today is we've played a game, likely or unlikely. So I would give them a sentence in a language such as Welsh or Spanish, and they would have to translate it and tell me if it was likely or unlikely. And yeah, lots and lots of things with the input flooding is great. I think as the children get a bit older and they're producing more language, just like Sue said, I think she called them sentence builders, we call them knowledge organisers, so that there are lots of opportunities to see the language and produce it. And a game that I absolutely love for that is Sentence Stealer, where the children write a sentence on the post-it note. They have then got to ask someone if they have the same sentence. So not only are they constantly repeating their sentence, they're hearing lots of similar versions of the sentence pattern as well. So I love those. I think the more children are able to listen and repeat, the more beneficial it is for them.
Absolutely. What you're talking about describes perfectly well that listening as modeling techniques, where it kind of is the perfect balance between implicit and explicit learning, because you know something off by heart if you think about nursery rhymes, for example, because you've been immersed in it and you heard it so many times. And in language teaching, that's so crucial to expose the children to that language as many times as often, by you being the model as a teacher and getting them to listen actively and getting them to listen to specific parts of language. So maybe focusing on phonics or focusing on grammar or focusing on vocabulary, whatever it is. So that is critical. And I love those games. I saw Sue nodding along to a Sentence Stealer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you play that.
And obviously we're playing similar sorts of games.
Yes.
As I say, we call it the sentence builder, and the chunks of sentences are in different color boxes, so that when you're starting out, you can limit the amount of vocabulary or language patterns they need to actually focus on. So something like Sentence Stealer. The other one they absolutely love is Mind Reader, where you protect, you've got your sentence patterns up there. And what I've done is I have my sentence builder, and then underneath I have sort of consecutive PowerPoint slides with certain sentences taken from the sentence builder, and I've numbered them. And then I read out one of the sentences, I write one of the sentences and they just write the number on their board, so they're not worrying about having to copy the sentence out. They're just writing the number on the board, and then I reveal which sentence I've got. But they love doing that as a whole class. They love doing it in groups. It all gets quite competitive. The other one that is, I think what's so important is once you've got a few activities that you're comfortable with, you can just drop them in very easily through the day, and it might only be a few minutes, but those few minutes are just enough to fire the interest again. So the one where we change our voice, you put on maybe a silly voice. I might do a crying voice, or a little bit put out voice, and they repeat after me. But I end an assembly like that. So we're using the ideas in all different sort of contexts. But I suppose what's really been the big thing for me is seeing how it empowers children who perhaps struggle with language, as in the English language and reading, because, as Becky just said, it's the repetition, that actually you don't have to be able to read it. The importance of an image, so they can see an image and they can say the sentence pattern. They don't have to be able to read it. But once that flashcard goes up or that image goes up on the board, all of a sudden someone who can't read actually, and I had a little girl a couple of years back, was actually confident enough to lead bingo because it was done by image, and she had the confidence in the sentence patterns, and to see that is just absolutely, it's absolutely brilliant to see how children can just come to life because you've taken away the difficulties of reading because they're so familiar with it.
It definitely makes it more inclusive. I can say you're giving more opportunities, therefore more students will access the language. And it's just listening to you talk about the funny voices that you make when you repeat vocabulary made me think of one of my favorite games. I think it's called Math Translation, or you can also play math dictation, I guess. So kind of recycling those old activities for language language teachers know very well, like dictations and translations, and just making them fun, but making it into games and making them competitive. And one of the one I enjoy is when I give a sentence, but I read it 5 times in different ways. So slow, robotic, as if I was a bird, as if I was a zombie, then super fast or whatever, singing it. And they have to manage to write the whole thing. The model could be there and they can just copy it, or they could just try to do it from memory, depending on obviously which year group and how confident they are. But they love that game. They want to actually lead the game.
I think as well, because they get so comfortable with the game, it's I can only keep stressing this, that it's so easy to drop in. It isn't perhaps as worrying as sometimes it can see. There's the one where you say a sentence and you jumble up the order, and then they've got to put the words back in the right one. And I mean, they're very simple games. Or you miss a word out and you count to 5, what's the missing word, and they all repeat it back. So simple. But it's just so easily done.
Yes, and it doesn't have to be a huge amount in terms of vocabulary. Just select those key phrases and just keep going back to those. It's better for them to be able to communicate something in a language than just to have 20 words for parts of the body that they can never use for any purpose. Absolutely. So let's talk about culture a minute. Do you incorporate like cultural elements into your language teaching?
So we have got a progressive language patterns document, but we also now have an overview of cultural aspects we want to cover. So, for example, in the first term, and this is, I'll be honest, in progression step 3, 4, 5, and 6 at the moment. So we're looking at which countries in the world speak French. So then we can take a country, we can investigate, we can find out, we can look at it and look at maps of the world and work out where all these places are. And of course, children love maps. They love facts about countries. They love looking them up. Then the other thing we have chosen to do, and whether this will be a rolling program, at the moment it's in development. So French artists. So again, taking a different artist, but linking it back to France and culture. Because what we tend to find when we sit as teachers and talk, we all talk about Paris.
Mhm.
We automatically all talk about Paris and things in Paris. It's trying to create a bigger picture. So our plan for the summer term is we're going to do a Eurovision Song Contest.
Wow.
Where the different classes are going to take a country and they're going to learn a French song, and then we're going to have a performance of the French songs as our Eurovision Song Contest. So so we're just trying to make it a bit of fun. I think but it is trying to move away from Paris for us, is what we find. Every time we talk, we come back to Paris.
Diversify your curriculum.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Diversity is key. And my God, can I come to your Eurovision Song Contest, please? Can I be invited? Anything like that in Stacey Primary?
So when we first started teaching Spanish language and it was going well, I did some listening to learners and I asked the children, what do you know about Spain?
Mhm.
And the answers I were getting were things like, well, my nan's been to Benidorm once, and they couldn't really tell me much more than that. And you know, as Sue was saying, I think we need to create that broader picture and not just the typical tourist things that we would find out about Spain. So, for example, I've done a dance club, and I think when most people think of Spain, they would think of flamenco dancing, whereas actually we learned a traditional Galician dance, which is quite similar to Welsh dancing, you know, which made lovely links. We try to make as many cultural links as we can when we're teaching the languages, but that's not always possible. For example, when we do greetings and we talk about buenos dias, buenos tardes, we then might go into a bit of detail about what a Spanish day looks like, because it is quite different to ours. The Spanish day runs differently. I think a Spanish day is more leisurely than a day in the UK, and you know, good afternoon is used a lot later than us. Lunch is later, so we try to talk about things like that. But where it can't always link in with the language teaching, we've started doing some of our empowering circles, which are in place of assemblies. We will discuss different things, like we might give each class a Spanish festival to talk about, or something that was really important to us that we wanted children to know is, where is Spain? A lot of children couldn't tell you how to get to Spain or where Spain was because nobody had visited the country. So we spent a lot of time talking about looking at the flag, the language, the food, where Spain is on a map. Why would you like to visit there? Is there any reason you may not want to? And those conversations were really great, and we addressed quite a few misconceptions about Spain, because like I say, you know, when you think of Spain and dance, you think of traditional flamenco, whereas actually that's quite regional. So I think we're giving children a broader picture of Spain, and that just like it does in the UK, it differs from region to region, different foods, different ways of speaking and pronouncing, different dance, different clothes. So that's been really beneficial for us.
It's so hard to stay away from stereotypes in language teaching, I feel. I think for diversity, this is super important to represent a Spanish child as in their normal everyday life and context. So what you said about buenas tardes and when is that used and when they have their lunch and what is the school they look like, what do they love, what sport do they play, what do they talk about with their friends. That makes the picture be more authentic and relevant than everybody has castanets and flamenco shoes, which is obviously not true. Have you dipped your toes into evaluation or assessment or reporting to parents or anything like that?
Yeah, so in regards to parents, our parents are really on board, and I've actually done a few workshops where parents have come in and done Spanish taster session, and they are all really on board with us. obviously, when we do our reports, we report on them as learners, language learner, when we report to parents. But we're just starting assessment tool now, assessing our learners as language learners, which we're using Rubric, which we use for our inquiry-based learning. We're from the windows of understanding, we've got different headings, and we've created our own rubric, not one per class, but one per progression step. So we're going to assess them based on their language learning, and that includes learning Spanish, Welsh and Mandarin. So rather than assessing, can you say this, tick, can you say that, cross, it's more assessing them as a learner. I hope that makes sense. So we're not necessarily, it's a tick sheet of can they say their name, can they say, but you know, as a language learner, are they able to make connections? Are they able to respond appropriately? Those kind of things.
Yes, the broad set of skills that are laid out in the curriculum, including receptive skills and expressive skills, not just number of words they know by heart. Absolutely. It makes complete sense. Thank you. What about you, Sue?
Well, as I said earlier, we put together the progression document of language patterns so that we can see the children are following a progression ladder as such. And then the way we're assessing it is when we do a sort of listening to learners that is a literacy one, we cover all the different aspects that way. And then the children respond to questions like, well, how do you learn? How do you do this? And they will then talk about games and sentence builders, and that's how we just monitor how French is going throughout the school at the moment. We don't have any formal recording or sheet, and likewise at the end of the year in a report that you just report as part of your LLC the aspect of international languages that they've been covering, and a lot of it is about the enjoyment, the pleasure. We're in a city and we're very much EAL, so we're full of languages wherever we go, but they do like learning a different language. They do even though they speak maybe 2 or 3 languages. They're remarkable children, absolutely remarkable.
So are there any challenges that you've experienced, maybe 1 or 2 that you've encountered?
I suppose as I just mentioned, changes of staff will always cause a problem, and as we've sort of had it on our upper floor, apart from myself, it's been quite a large movement of teachers and different teachers. So it's about, and again, when it might be new to the school or on just new to that particular year group, it's about sort of making sure they're comfortable, making sure they're confident. We're also going to be amalgamated next, the September coming. Wow, it's passing by really quickly. So we're amalgamating with Allen's Bank over the road. They too have been teaching French, so that's good. But now it's going to be how we incorporate, how we develop a curriculum for both schools to start off as what we will now be, which will be Fairoak Primary.
That's a lovely name.
New curriculum for Fairoak Primary is what we need to develop now.
What about challenges for you, Becky? Anything you would like to share?
I think whenever you make any changes in a school, you always do have a few challenges with staff confidence and maybe time. I think something that we did worry about as a school initially was, like Sue said, we've got a really high percentage of EAL pupils, and we thought that would we be doing them a disservice by adding another language when they're still trying to master or even learn English. But actually, it's our EAL pupils who are better at language learning because they already have those connections. And I think you've got to have those high expectations of the pupils. Never assume there's going to be this barrier to learning, there's going to be this barrier. Just go for it, have a go. Staff confidence as well. I think one of our teachers in the school, whenever I go and watch her do her IL lessons, I really admire her because she always reminds the children, I am learning Spanish too. You know, we have the right to have a go. We have the right to make a mistake. And I think when you embrace that you are a learner too, that's great.
If you were to choose like a success, Becky, a success story, or pick it like something that you has had an amazing benefit for your students in terms of learning Spanish, what would you say?
I think just inspiring children as lifelong language learners. I think when I've done listening to learners, children are really excited about language. They love learning languages. They love being successful. It may inspire them to learn then an additional language. And I think that is just really successful. I think it's as well, when I've done listening to learners, it's inspired children that they now want to visit Spain in the future, and they feel that if they were to visit Spain in the future, that they could communicate. You know, children have said to me things like, well, if I went to Spain, I could talk to someone, I could make a friend. If someone moved from Spain to our school, I could speak to them and make them feel welcome and be their friend, which I think is amazing. Really, really good.
Amazing. I think that shows the power of languages to connect people. What about you, Sue? Do you have any examples from your school?
Yeah, no, it's a similar thing, isn't it? It's about seeing the enjoyment, the pleasure, a recognition that I can achieve this, I can do this. It's brilliant when they see links between languages. So, you know, it might be where an adjective comes in a sentence, because every language is different. And then being the school we can go, oh, think about it in your language. Where does your adjective come? And exploring things like that they enjoy doing. But for me, the biggest one is the inclusion aspect, that because it's so much, you know, it's so oracy based and it's so practical, that it just allows everyone to join in and no one feels at a disadvantage. We play lots of Bloquette games and word wall games, you know, and they absolutely love it. So it's inclusion, it's fun, and just seeing the pride they take in being able to communicate.
Amazing. Any plans, Sue, to expand or enhance the international language program in the future? I know you have a big challenge with the amalgamation coming up.
Yeah, that's the big one for us at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, when we started off, we did focus on the upper end of the school. So we've in the last academic year sort of filtered it more down into the younger children. It's really nice to hear Becky talking about what she's doing with the younger children, and inspires to go out and look at it and see how we can develop with the, I suppose, with the younger children. So
yes, a lot of singing I see in your future. Yeah. What about you, Becky?
So something that we've started quite recently is a new pupil voice group called the Linguistic Masters. And that's something that we think is going to support us on our journey. What the role of the Linguistic Masters is to support with language throughout the school. So from year 3, 4, 5 and 6, there's 4 linguistic masters in each class, and like I say, we're very lucky. We've got over 29 different languages spoken in our school, so 2 pupils from each class are fluent in a home language, but each language is different. For example, we haven't got 2 Polish speaking linguistic masters or 2 Arabic speaking linguistic masters. We've got 8 different languages across the 4 classes, and what we've done is we've used them as buddies. If we've had a pupil that's arrived at our school who has no or limited English, we will try and find a linguistic master that we can buddy them to, who can maybe just talk to them, make them feel welcome, support them, be a friend, show that their language is valued within our school. They can also then help to give instruction or comfort when they're upset. And also each class then has a Welsh linguistic master and a Spanish linguistic master. And although we have no fluent Welsh speakers or fluent Spanish speakers within the school at the moment, we've chosen 2 from each class who show that they're enthusiastic learners and they are actually building up their competence in the subject. So a Welsh or Spanish linguistic master in year 6 might be able to go and support in another class by helping with language, games, help ahead you, patterns, and that's just something we're developing at the moment.
That's such a good example of using the whole repertoire, the whole linguistic repertoire of the community within the school time in such a purposeful and meaningful way, because I bet those children now are developing a very healthy multilingual identity. So they see themselves as multilingual speakers, but that is valued by their school. Therefore, they're going to value their identity and embrace it. And such so important. So just finishing off today, I would like to ask Becky first and then Sue, if there is leave us with any piece of advice or any do's or don'ts or anything that you'd like to share about your experience that you think will be beneficial for teachers who are now integrating languages into their curriculum.
I think from a language leader perspective, I think there always is that worry that you're going to have pushback from parents or staff, or sometimes some schools would even say that their SLT have reservations about languages. So something that's worked really well in our school is that we've had an IL working party, so an international languages working party. And that consists of 4 members of staff. When we first started it, it was a reception teacher, a year 2 teacher, a year 4 teacher, and a year 6 teacher. And when I would come back with my crazy ideas like Try Talk, we would trial them in those classes first. We would see how they went. We would discuss it as a group, what went well, what didn't go well. We would make any little tweaks that we needed, and we'd also be able then to share with staff when we wanted to implement something. We could say, we've done it, this didn't work, this did work, and this is the impact it is having, this is the benefit, this is why we're doing it. And I think as well, from a language leader perspective and point of view, it's always good to do things yourself and not expect staff to do something that you're not doing. I think you need to lead by example as a language leader.
Yeah, that's so true. Anything from you, Sue?
Yeah, very much the same sort of message, I suppose, is I tend to trial things myself first to give it a go, to find out what works. So that if it's not going to work, it's me as the language lead that sort of has to pick through why it's not worked, or is it not right for our particular children. I would really promote the EPI and the sentence builders and language that children can actually use, because the simplicity of hobbies and sports, you can link it across the curriculum. And we've currently linked a text we were reading, and one of the characters was called David, and what sort of sports do we think he would like to play. So you can very simply say David likes playing football, but you're starting to bring it back into your whole curriculum. But just have a go. Just have a go. It is. You don't have to be brilliant at the language. You just need a small amount of language and give it a try. And as Becky said earlier, the importance of the children knowing that you're a language learner as well is so important.
Yeah, I think if I could take like 2 or 3 words of what you just all said, both said in this podcast, would be love for languages, passion, enjoyment, and community of learners. And I think if you've got those as you kind of in your inspirational kind of posters or in your board thinking of your vision, you'll be fine. Thank you so much to both of you for your insights and for sharing your experiences. It's been very inspiring to me to learn about your approach to embedding international languages, and I really wish you continued success with your program. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us today. A reminder that that our professional learning offer at CSC includes language courses, webinars on different topics like pedagogical approaches, or phonics, or literature. And also we offer bespoke support to schools with introduction of Spanish, French, Italian, German, a variety of those. And have also we have links to different official institutes. These offer also free courses, they have free resources for schools. And these are the Institut Français, la Consejería de Educación Española, el Consulato Italiano, the Goethe Institute for German, the Confucius Institute for Chinese, and the Qatar Foundation for Arabic. And just finally, if you have already started on your journey, maybe consider applying for the prestigious International Schools Award and have your efforts to develop a more global outlook recognized by British Council. Okay? And please, just get in touch if there is anything that we can do to help. So, gracias, Becky.
Gracias, Marina.
And merci, Sue.
Merci.
And au revoir, Will, y hasta pronto.
Au revoir.
Adios.
Diolch am wrando ar y bennod hon o Sgwrs. Cofiwch ein dilyn ar Twitter a Facebook, tanysgrifio ein sianel YouTube, ymuno yn cymunedau ar ein gwefan a darllen ein bwletin ysgolion wythnosol am y newyddion diweddaraf. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sgwrs. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, join our online communities via our website, and read our weekly school bulletin for the latest news. Hwyl am y tro. Bye for now.